I'm Cindy Kelly. It is February 14, 2019. I'm in Hiroshima, Japan.
Yes.
And my first question to you is to say your name and spell it.
Okay. My name is Yasuyoshi Komizo, and Yasuyoshi, long first name and shorter last name, Komizo, Komizo. Yasuyoshi Komizo. I'm the
Great.
chair of the Hiroshima Peace Culture Foundation.
So tell us a little bit about the Hiroshima Peace Cultural Foundation. What does it do?
Yes. Actually, it is established in 1976. The main purpose is to preserve and disseminate the experience of August 6, 1945. That is atomic bombing and the humanitarian suffering, and also the after effects and long-standing suffering. Still, they are suffering. The survivors are still suffering of this bomb, and that is the first thing. And also, we convey the message of Hiroshima. I just told you that no one else shall ever again suffer. It's not a message of revenge, but it's actually the message of the humanitarian, kind of call to all the humanity. And number two, on the basis of that, we are trying to achieve the world, help achieve the world without nuclear weapons. And the number three, on the basis of this exercise, we need to promote mutual understanding and mutual cooperation in the global society, so that we can be better equipped to work towards the sustainable global peace for everybody. That is basically our work. And we are managing three facilities, institutions. One is the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, the Atomic Bomb Museum. And number two is it's a long name, I have to read it. The Hiroshima National Peace Memorial Hall for the atomic bomb victims. And another one is actually International Conference Center over there. So those three institutions are very important institutions for us, and I am responsible for managing those things. And of course, those two museums has autonomy quite well. So the director is very much autonomous, but I am advising him. And we also serve as a secretariat for the Mayors for Peace, and I'm going to talk about Mayors for Peace later. And those are the basic work we are doing.
It sounds like a huge job.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm really excited. I was a diplomat for 43 years, and I retired at the age of 65. I'm now 71. And I have been here for about 6 years, serving for this very, very important work. And I feel my 43 years of the diplomatic work, including the ambassador to international organizations in Vienna and ambassador to Kuwait, those experiences, and also the special assistant to Mohammed el-Baradei. Maybe most of the Americans don't like him, but anyway, he's my respected boss, Egyptian. Well, those things, I think I should stop here. And those are very, very important for me.
Is this a good time to talk about the Mayors for Peace?
Oh, can I already? Yes.
Yeah.
Mayors for Peace is proposed by then Mayor of Hiroshima, Mr. Araki, in 1982 in the second special General Assembly kind of a conference. And it was agreed immediately by the Mayor of Nagasaki, and the Mayor of Hiroshima and Nagasaki took initiatives to form a group of mayors non-partisan mayors from the world, all over the world, to work to accelerate the work towards the world without nuclear weapons. And now we have 7,709 cities in 163 countries and regions. And it is increasing almost every month, 10, 20, 30, 40 membership are increasing. And population within those cities in total is about 1 billion citizens. So it's still growing organization and working towards the world without nuclear weapons. But we have second pillar of activities, which is the realization of safe and resilient cities. Because many mayors join us is simply because they are responsible to provide citizens safety and welfare. And that's why they are working towards the safe and resilient cities. And they understand that the greatest obstacle for their intensive efforts to make our city, which is kind of a feeling home to everybody in the various people. Those efforts take a long, long time to make a community which can be, feel at home by various people. It's a constant challenge, but those intensive challenge may be broken by a single nuclear weapons. So no mayors want their cities to be attacked by nuclear weapons. So we have around 215 cities in the United States, and this city in the United States is the Iowa, Des Moines Mayor County. And we have around 100 cities in Russia, and Volgograd mayor is a lead mayor. And also US, UK, and Ireland together, nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states together. UK and Ireland, Manchester is a lead city. And we have also membership, I think it's a smaller number, 56 or so in Israel. And we have membership in Palestine. And in Iran, we have more than 1,000 cities. And of course in Latin America and Asia, and so all over the world, we have membership. And the basic understanding is that we would like to have a peace for the humanity. That is the peace which can be supported by everybody. Of course, this is very far from the reality. But that is the reason why we need a vision and we need to work. And this is a movement of the Mayors for Peace. And we have three things very, very important in our work. Number one is dialogue, because we belong to the same human family, but each one of us is different. Different in color, different in culture, different in political inclinations, genders, and history, and so on. But that is the reason why each person is irreplaceable. Each person is so precious, and the understanding that we belong to the same human family need to start from the reality, to very humbly understand others' differences. That is the starting point. And then different people need to talk, need to engage in sincere dialogue, to come up with understanding the common ground, to create common values and common goals, and implement them together. And this process is actually the fertile ground to achieve a real feeling that we all belong to the same human family. Because by those exercises, we feel much greater commonality as a human being than the differences. So this is our way. So number one, Mayors for Peace, he emphasizes dialogue, because we are very, very different. Our way to promote our security is very different. Ideas are very different. We honor that each differences, but at the same time, we need to find a common ground. And number two, the inclusiveness, that no one should be left out. We should try, no one should be left out. That is a way we work. And number three, it's the complementarity. It's like an orchestra. Each instrument has a beautiful sounds, but harmonization of the various instruments can create, like orchestra, much greater beauty, much greater music. So we appreciate, we emphasize dialogue, and no one should be left out, and to work together like an orchestra, a harmony. Those are the three ways of making our efforts to achieve the purpose. Because peace is not a stagnant thing. We are all different. We have all different visions, different goals, and therefore we have to coordinate. We have to harmonize them, and those harmony should be done always. And so this is a dynamic peace. And in order to do that, it may be, for some people, it is very far a cry, but for us, it is only a stable way to achieve a stable peace. So that is our way to work. And we also, basis of our work is a message of hibakushas, because hibakusha, when we look at the history, their feeling is, kind of dominated by the fear and anger and even the sense of revenge. But over time, they have come to a conclusion in various ways that if they continue the vicious circle of hatred or revenge, then they cannot bring a peace for their loved ones, for their future generations. And therefore, they have come to the conclusion, only way is that no one else shall ever again suffer as we have. That is a very, very important message coming from the ordinary people. And therefore, we honor hibakusha's message. And then we are trying to achieve that message and dream into the real world. And so we need to coordinate with scholars, with philosophers, and with educators, with environmentalists and politicians, and youth and women, and various groups. And that is a way we can achieve the peace which can be supported by everybody. Of course, and this is maybe an achievable dream, but if many people work towards that direction, then the world we live in, even with problems, is much better world. That is a way we try.
That's wonderful. Your background as a diplomat comes through.
Yeah, as a diplomat, I also try to do the same thing.
Yes.
And
yes.
at one point,
everybody get along.
Yeah.
Dialogue.
At one point in Vienna, actually, the Pakistani ambassador, who was the leader of the G77 group for the economic and financial issues, Japan's position is very different from G77. But this Pakistani ambassador came to me. He knows my background, and he knows that I was special assistant to Mohammed. He's also from the third world. And he asked me to come up with a G77 proposal to one very, very difficult problems. He's a smart man. So I accepted it. So I had to talk to the Russians and Latinos, Africans and Asians, and everybody. And in the beginning, there was no common ground, nothing. There is no common denominators. But then the dialogue starts. then I have to think about. For example, Russians, we cannot do that because of the internal law. And I studied it. This was not internal law. Law doesn't prohibit. It's just a practice. So, this way, and, and for example, the Latino wants this and that one, and then I think about it. And maybe your, way, what you would like to achieve can be done by this way, a different way. And this kind of dialogue brought together within a week, within a month. Finally, we have a very thin but common grounds. And then I gave this proposal to the Pakistani ambassador, and he proposed it as a G77 proposal. And then it was adopted by consensus. So, this is actually, what I'm saying is not something, kind of coming out of my mind, but coming from the history book and coming from my own experience as a diplomat.
Yeah. So that might be a good model for how to work through, greater reconciliation between kind of the views that many in the United States have about the Manhattan Project.
Yes.
And views people in Japan have.
Yes, yes.
Which are very, you look at the polls and America's populace believes it was the right thing to do to drop the bomb, and very few people in Japan think that was the right thing to do.
That's right.
Understandably. But if we have a lot of dialogue, that it will become easier
Yes.
for people to understand.
Yeah, I was also invited as one of the experts to discuss the Manhattan Project National Parks kind of presentation. About 20-some experts. Two of the experts.
In Washington, D.C.,
Washington,
in
D.C.
November. I was
right.
there.
Oh, you were there, yeah. And so basically, my remarks are very simple. Number one, this dropping of the atomic bomb should be presented on the basis of facts. And number two, it is maybe difficult, but this should also include the sufferings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And number three, this should be future-oriented. Future-oriented means that we should not bound by the existing nuclear deterrence way of achieving security. We can design maybe much better way, maybe on the basis of promoting the mutual understanding and mutual cooperation, and then much wider vision of security, not only military means, but culturally and human relations and youth exchange and so on. That can be considered as the very important components of security. And then that I mean the future orientation. And by proposing this one, I told the United States colleagues, because all the others are from the United States, Americans, I told them that United States is a champion of democracy. Of course, United States democracy has lots of challenges, but that is a vision, that the United States is keeping that very, very important vision, despite a lot of problems. And number two, again, the Declaration of Independence. The United States is actually promoting the human rights and diversity, the appreciation of diversity and so on. So on the basis of that leadership function of the United States, I requested the United States to take those viewpoints in their program. And finally, those three elements, within maybe tens of 30 or 40 elements, those three elements were included.
So good. Yeah. No, clearly you struck a chord as the superintendent of the new Manhattan Project National Historical Park is very excited about working with Japan and listening to how you've interpreted, as part of the
Yes,
history
yes,
and incorporating it
Yeah.
into the interpretation.
Yes, and I think I was impressed of the professionalism, and also the way as a kind of a person who is honoring the truth. That's that I saw that kind of professional engagement, commitment by those people talked with us.
Yeah.
And so I think I felt very very impressed, and
Yeah.
I was very happy to be a part of it.
Yes, they are very methodical, which is always on a plus side. But for people who want action now, faster,
Yeah, sure.
it can be frustrating because they have to go through the process, and
Yes.
it's important
Yes.
because once you put out your interpretation and it's missing elements or it doesn't speak to one group's concern or another group's concern, or anyway, then you're in trouble. So
Yes.
if you go through the process and consult with people and
Yes.
get the best experts, and
Yeah.
Yeah. so we must applaud them,
Yes.
even if
Right.
a lot of us who tried to for a dozen years to get a park
Yes.
want it now. It's must be patient.
And I also like to thank you also again for your help for making the Manhattan park project be more receptive to the kind of history and impact to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and also the future orientation, because
Yes.
I think this nuclear weapon was produced during the very fierce warfare, and we should not stick with that kind of products for good. Actually, I think we should think about security, which is based on the promotion of mutual understanding and mutual cooperation. Of course, we live in a very, very difficult world, but unless we work for the change of the direction and framework, how to keep the international peace and security, we'll be facing a real kind of dangerous situations. So I think that is the reason why we are working very closely with hibakusha and try to materialize what they really wish to be a reality. And like in the case of the Declaration of Independence, the vision is not equal to the reality. That is the reason why we need a vision. And vision without knowing the reality, we can't really reach to the goal. And also the realism without vision is just a defeatism. So I think we should work on it. And by the way, when new ambassador Hagati, he visited Hiroshima last year. I think less than a year after he was assigned by President Trump, and he was with his wife and 4 children, and from 16 to 9 years old, 2 boys and 2 girls. And since I was guiding former Ambassador Caroline Kennedy quite some time, a number of times actually. She came to Hiroshima more than 10 times within 2 years. And so I guided her through maybe 4 or 5 times. And because of that, embassy, American embassy, asked me privately to guide him through the museum at 7 a.m. where nobody is around. And I was told he's with his children, that are delicate age children from 16 to 9. And so I was thinking very, very hard how to communicate, because I have to tell them what is necessary to be told. It's a difficult fact, but at the same time, I don't want them to kind of lose confidence with the American government. So that is not our purpose. So my conclusion, within a week before I was noticed and I just received them, I was thinking very, very hard, and finally I came to the conclusion. I first greeted the ambassador and his wife, and then greeted 4 children, and I told them, today you are the main guests, and most important, because I'm going to guide you through the museum, but there are a number of difficult things you are going to see. But most important message I'd like to convey to you is this, and I told them, the hibakusha's message, no one else shall ever again suffer as we have, is that means actually every human being has a right, without exception, to live a good life. That kind of understanding, and this is in the basic foundation, same to the Declaration of Independence, because all the men are created equal, and by the Creator given an inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So those two messages actually resonate quite well, and basically the same message. If you understand that one, then you understand what you see. Yes. And I think your question also included the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
may I talk
yes,
about it?
Yes.
Actually, Mayors for Peace is, as I said, try to be, kind of accommodating various things and try to honor them, and of course by discussion to come up with the common ground. But one thing we emphasize is the legal prohibition of nuclear weapons, because NPT, Article 6, actually the vision is total elimination in the future. And if we really aim at the security system which does not depend on nuclear weapons, then we should also try to go towards that goal. And I think somewhere in between we need to prohibit it. Before we eliminate it, I think we need to legally prohibit the nuclear weapons. And when it is ready or not has different views. That's why the major powers don't support treaties or TPNW yet. But our point is actually nuclear weapon states need to also understand why the many countries with the support of civil society adopted this treaty against the strong opposition by the major powers. This is a very, very important element. Because I think, let me talk about the American, actually the doomsday clock by the American Society of Scientists. I forgot the name, but it is now, last year, January last year, was 2 minutes to midnight. It's as devastating as the one when U.S. and Soviet Union then in 1953, I think, both succeeded the hydrogen bomb tests, and it was a real danger. Of course, that danger is not there, but still many things are by accidents, and those things we still have 14,500 nuclear weapons around the world, and by miscalculation, by accidents, or maybe by use by the terrorists, can cause unbearable sufferings to the people. So we are living in the danger, and the reason why doomsday clock was considered to be 2 minutes to midnight is for 2 reasons. One is, both of them is a lack of leadership by the political leaders. Number one, on nuclear weapons. abolition. And number two is climate change. And in both cases, actually, to me, same underlying problems, whether we can, work together beyond the differences for this global challenges or not. And this global security require real challenges from all over the world, and the climate change as well. And we have very good examples in the United States, like former late Kennedy actually achieved the partial test ban treaty with Khrushchev, and this one actually after the Cuban crisis, so at a very, very difficult time, both leaders felt many things, and of course they wanted to compete more to be upper hands, but at the same time Kennedy felt that at that time actually most of the Americans felt Soviet Union is like a rogue state, so they didn't trust Soviet Union. But Kennedy was saying we have to be careful. But the Soviet people in the Soviet Union also wants peace badly if we look at the history, and so there is a common denominator. And if we don't work that way, in 10-20 years time, maybe nuclear weapons holding states can become 20 or so. And this is, there are certain reasons for it actually, certain reasons supporting that possibility. And that's why he has to work very closely with Soviet Union. And he, at the American University, made a very important speech, strategy for peace. And then, surprisingly, Khrushchev, of course, under that Cold War era, Soviet Union doesn't are afraid of the American propaganda. So the American message will not go through the people, but Khrushchev ordered to translate in Russian the Kennedy's speech. And within 2 months after this Kennedy's speech, Soviet Union and US led the adoption of the partial test ban treaty, including UK. And also Reagan, in the beginning, of course, invested very much on the modernization of the nuclear weapons, including the kind of space war type. And but during the course, he was informed, as I understand, by the generals and security staff, if actually those weapons are used in European ground, then millions of people die. And when he heard it, then he changed his mind. And in the inaugural speech in 1985, he was actually even telling that I would work to eliminate nuclear weapons from the earth. So he has changed so much. And actually, this actually means leaders can learn, responsible leaders can learn. And then, lucky thing is actually Gorbachev was there on the other side. So those two leaders go beyond the differences at the time of very, very tense rivalry and tense kind of situation for the warfare. They came up with the abolition of the INF. Now the INF treaty is in danger, but that was actually really usable weapons in Europe. And but because of those leadership. So my feeling that United States can take a leadership in this way. It may take some time, but I think if United States doesn't take leadership, it is very, very difficult. I also asked Russians, if US is scrapping INF, they should come up with some creative ideas, but they said, well, we're just reacting to the American position. So that is a reality. Actually, good or bad. From my experiences and from my reading of history books and talking to the various diplomats and policymakers, the United States is a crucial player in the nuclear field, and so we would like to encourage United States to take a renewed leadership. And by the way, the UK, of course, they are limited and they don't have much nuclear weapons anyway, but they feel that if nuclear weapons states don't take leadership, the NPT's credibility would be lost. So UK is now quietly trying to take a leadership to persuade US and Russia to be accommodative and try to show the P5's responsibility towards the world. So, and also, I know many, including yourself, many conscientious American leaders and opinion leaders and various people are trying to take initiatives to change. And I think for the North Korean issue, of course, Trump is a bit vague, but Trump, I think we should appreciate that Trump at least take a leadership which only the top leader can take. They started the negotiation. And of course, this initiative needs to be supported by the well-informed experts. Otherwise, it would be just kind of a window dressing and nothing changes and we'll be in more danger. But this can be a beginning of much greater process. And dictatorship, if, for example, economy is open, dictatorship require monopoly of giving merits and privilege to the people. But if the economy is open, then the source of giving economic merits and privileges will become multiple. That will make change of dictatorship from within, and that would be much better way of transition from sticking to the nuclear weapons to the much better way as a responsible partner in the international community. Of course, it is not easy, and management in the process is much more difficult. But we would like to encourage Trump to take that leadership, and then we should, in the international community, should support it, so that the change would be in ordered change, and the internal change of the North Korea can make them much responsible country. So that is probably the only way, because we cannot really expect perfect elimination in the beginning, because they are afraid of the American invasion. So they need to keep it, but they need to do some commitments as a starting point, and then we have to manage. So I think this is not something, but no. I think this way we expect United States to take a real leadership, and that can be done only by the United States. By the way, the reason why I'm talking about this one is Mayors for Peace also respects each region and each country, because cities has autonomy, but it is different from country to country. North Korea doesn't have any autonomy, but China is much less. And so we have the common vision. We need to work towards a world without nuclear weapons. But the membership in the United States or membership in Russia does not necessarily promote TPNW, because their government is not thinking that way. So it is rather curious that mayors stand against the national leadership. It's a bit strange. So we just encourage them to take their own way of achieving the change towards our common goals. And Volgograd, for example, last year, the World Cup, soccer's World Cup match was in Russia. And at the Volgograd, Japan and Belgium competed. And at that time, without our advice, the Volgograd city and Volgograd State University voluntarily hosted atomic bomb exhibition there. And city staffs and the university staff and students volunteered to guide the visitors to these things. And the United States in the past 13 years at the US Conference of Mayors, by advice of our US members, taking the consensus resolution for 13 consecutive years for the nuclear disarmament resolutions. And that is their own making. If we do that in the United States, that is interference, unfair interference by the outside forces. That's why we are very, very careful. We shouldn't do that. But we encourage the United States to take their own approaches. And France is taking their own approach. Germany taking their own approach. Iran, of course, we have to be a bit careful. So we have to be a bit careful, but we need to honor the differences. That is our kind of a consistent way of organizing and also promoting much wider movement, which may be different from region to region, country to country. But that is a way the realities are. And the best way to change that reality is that those people living there, those people who love that country, and people outside, it's easy to criticize, but it's not our way of doing that.
It's very wise. You may get something done.
I hope so. I hope so. Because
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, we make many symbolic acts, like around 170 trees in Hiroshima survived, damaged but survived. Most of the trees died in the area, but around 170, and now I think around 160 trees still survive, and we nurture them very carefully by professionals, and we distribute seeds and offsprings and plant them to grow the sense of peace by nurturing those trees. And that happened in various places, like Sarajevo, 100 years anniversary of the Sarajevo's assassination of the Austrian-Hungary prince and princesses. That year we went there and then planted together with the mayor the atomic bomb damaged trees. And the mayor at that time felt that this tree is actually maybe male and female tree combined becomes one tree. So this is like, they have the Muslims and Croatians and another one, three different major groups, and they don't go along very well. But Mayor is trying to achieve harmony among those things once they lived in harmony. And this tree actually symbolizes our efforts to do that. And the message coming from Hiroshima, no one else shall ever suffer as we have. And this message is an excellent message for us to work in a very, very difficult situation to unite the different people. And and various other places, and Kazakhstan, and even the U.S. embassy, not embassy, U.S. Consul General in Osaka have one of the atomic bomb trees. In the U.S. Consul General's official compound, they planted this tree. And this is actually a message that once fiercely fought enemies can work together, grow the tree to kind of dream and achieve innovative peace in the future.